If you're watching this, you're probably preparing for exams and you want to do really well. Maybe you've been putting in the hours and not getting the results that you deserve. Or maybe you haven't started yet and you're not sure where to begin. Either way, this video is for you. Before we start, I want to make one thing clear. This is probably going to feel different from most how to study videos or books that you've come across. I'm not going to spend the next 30 minutes throwing complicated terminology at you or giving every technique a fancy name. You do not need to memorise words like the Feynman technique or fill your brain with revision jargon. Most of the time, that just clutters your thinking and makes simple things sound more complicated than they are. This is about practical implementation. What actually matters is not whether you can remember the name of a learning theory. What matters is whether you can sit down tonight and use a method that genuinely helps information stick. I speak to students every single day who are still using the same learning techniques that they've always used. Rereading notes, copying things out, making colour-coded flashcards. Then they sit in the exam and go blank. That's not a memory problem, that's a method problem. These techniques feel productive, they're familiar, comfortable, and they keep you busy, but they're passive. Your brain isn't being challenged, it's just absorbing, not retaining. In the next 30 minutes, I'm going to show you 4 techniques that work with how the brain actually learns. No complicated theory, just methods that you can actually use. Use them consistently and your results will improve. The first technique is one that most students have never tried. Recording voice memos from a reputable exam board specific textbook and listening back to them. Most revision is passive. You read something, think you understand it, and move on. But passive revision doesn't stick. One of the biggest mistakes students make is relying on their own notes too early. Your notes can be incomplete, oversimplified, or just wrong. The same goes for random revision websites. Most online summaries have already been shortened down by somebody else, which means somebody else has already done the thinking and filtering for you. That feels easier in the short term, but it weakens your understanding. There are no shortcuts here. If you want the breadth and depth needed for top exam performance, start with a trusted textbook written specifically for your exam board. That's the standard your revision should be built on. And remember, in most subjects, getting the marks means using the correct vocabulary and terminology accurately. If you never actually say those words, how are you supposed to remember them under pressure in the exam? That's where voice memos become more powerful. When you repeatedly hear yourself using key terminology correctly, it starts to stick naturally. The same way you remember the lyrics to your favourite songs without even trying. Your brain begins to remember definitions, processes, and subject-specific language through repetition and familiarity. Then, when you listen back on a walk, on the bus, while you're cooking or getting ready, your brain is retrieving and reinforcing accurate information without you even sitting at a desk. How to do it? Start with an exam board approved textbook or specification. Pick one topic, not everything at once. Read through it carefully and identify the key definitions, processes, and explanations exactly as they are presented. Then hit record and read the important sections clearly and accurately. Don't rush through it. The goal is precision. You want to hear the correct terminology repeatedly until it becomes automatic. After recording the core content, pause and explain part of it in your own words if it helps your understanding, but always anchor yourself to the textbook first. That way you know the foundation is accurate. End each recording with a question, such as, what are the 3 stages of this process? Why does this happen? That question becomes a mini test every time you listen back. Then organise your recordings into folders by topic: calculus, the Cold War, organic chemistry, whatever your subjects are. Label them clearly so that you can find them easily. When to listen? You don't need extra study time for this. Listen during moments that would otherwise be wasted: commuting, doing chores, getting ready in the morning, or before bed. 10 minutes here and there adds up to hours of revision across a week. Why this builds exam confidence? Repetition is how memory works. The more times your brain encounters the same information, the stronger the neural pathway becomes. Voice memos let you repeat exposure effortlessly. By the time you sit down to answer practice questions, the terminology and concepts already feel familiar. The second technique is called the 20-minute teacher and is based on a very simple idea. If you can teach something, you truly understand it. You can read about supply and demand, the causes of the First World War, or how a circuit works, and feel like you understand it, but the moment someone asks you to explain it properly from scratch, you realise where the gaps are. Teaching exposes what you don't know. That's exactly what you want to discover before the exam, not during it. Pick a topic and set a timer for 20 minutes, and actually use the full 20 minutes. Don't just estimate it in your head while half checking your phone or drifting onto something else. The timer matters because it creates focus and urgency. Most people expand to fill the time they give themselves. If you tell yourself that you'll revise for the afternoon, then somehow that work stretches across the whole afternoon. Give yourself 20 focus minutes instead and your brain switches on. During those 20 minutes, your only job is to work on that topic using whatever you need: textbook, notes, diagrams, videos. Break the topic into parts. What's the definition? What's the process? What are the key examples or pieces of evidence? When the timer goes off, close everything and teach it out loud. Imagine you're explaining it to someone who knows absolutely nothing about the subject. Use simple language. Connect ideas logically. Don't just recite facts. Explain them. Tips for you to make it more effective. Pretend that your imaginary student asks you questions. Why does that happen? What's the difference between X and Y? Answering those forces you to think at a deeper level. If you get stuck, that's your signal to go back to your notes and fill in the gaps. Record yourself if you can. Listening back will be uncomfortable but incredibly useful. You'll hear exactly where you hesitate or where your explanation becomes vague. Keep the timer running for the entire session and protect that time properly. Short, fully focused sessions beat long, distracted ones every single time. Why this prepares you for exams. Most exam questions don't just ask you to recall facts, they ask you to explain, compare, and evaluate. If you've been training yourself to explain out loud, doing it in writing becomes much easier. You've already rehearsed the thinking. The exam is simply putting it onto paper. Now let's talk about past papers, because almost every student uses them, but very few use them correctly. I see this constantly. A student sits down with a past paper, sees a difficult question, spends 30 seconds on it, and then immediately flips to the mark scheme. They think, oh yeah, I knew that, and then they move on. This feels like revision. It isn't. It's just reading the answers with extra steps. The problem isn't the past papers themselves. Past papers are one of the best revision tools available. The problem is giving up too quickly and treating the mark scheme like a comfort blanket. The right approach. Find a quiet space with no phone, no music, and no other distractions. Set a real timer and let it run exactly like an exam. Roughly 1 minute per mark is a good rule, so a 10-mark question gets 10 minutes. For a full paper, use the actual exam time limit. The point is not to estimate how long something should take. The timer creates pressure, focus, and momentum. Without it, work expends endlessly and concentration drops. Work through every question, especially the ones that feel impossible. Break the question down. What is it actually asking? What key words can you spot? What do you know that's even vaguely related? Write something. An imperfect attempt is far more valuable than a blank page. Only check the mark scheme once you've finished the entire paper or session, not before. The discomfort of not knowing is where the learning happens. When reviewing the mark scheme, don't just tick answers and move on. For every question where you dropped marks, ask yourself, did I not know it, or did I not express it clearly enough? There are different problems with different solutions. Tracking your progress. Keep a simple log. After each paper, write down your score and the topics where you lost marks. Over time, patterns will emerge. You'll start seeing which topics repeatedly cause problems and you can target them deliberately. Progress tracking also keeps you motivated. Watching your scores improve over time is one of the best confidence builders going into an exam. Building resilience. Students who do well in exams aren't necessarily the most naturally gifted. They're the ones who trained themselves to sit with difficulty. When you see a question that you don't immediately know the answer to, your instinct is often to panic or give up. The more you keep pushing through uncertainty, the calmer you'll be when it actually counts. The fourth technique is active recall. The research behind it is overwhelming. Retrieving information from memory is significantly more effective for long-term retention than rereading or rewatching material. Every time you pull something out of your memory, you strengthen the pathway to it. Every time you reread a page, you don't. That's the difference between active and passive revision, and it's why two students can spend the same number of hours revising and get completely different results. What active recall actually looks like. Take a blank piece of paper and write a topic at the top. Then, without looking at any notes, write down everything you know about that topic. Definitions, processes, dates, examples, arguments, everything. When you can't write any more, open your notes and see what you missed. Those gaps become your revision list. That's it. It sounds almost too simple, but the act of trying to retrieve information, even when you struggle or get it wrong, is what drives learning. The struggle is the point. Using active recall sheets. If you have structured recall sheets for your subject, even better. Cover the answers and write your responses from memory on a blank piece of paper. Don't type them. Don't just say them out loud. Write them. Writing engages more of your brain than speaking or tapping, and it directly mirrors what you'll be doing in the exam. Check your answers afterwards and highlight everything you got wrong or couldn't remember. Those are the questions you come back to tomorrow. Spaced repetition. Active recall becomes even more powerful when combined with spaced repetition. Instead of going over the same material every day, revisit it at increasing intervals. For example, test yourself today, again in 2 days, again in a week, and then again a fortnight later. This feels counterintuitive because by the time you come back to something, you've partially forgotten it, but that's exactly why it works. The effort of retrieving something you've half forgotten strengthens the memory far more than reviewing something you already know well. A practical daily routine. In the morning, set a 20-minute timer and spend that entire block on active recall. Write out everything you know, check your answers, and identify your gaps. The timer is important here. You're not vaguely doing revision, you are fully focused on one task for one defined period of time. That constraint keeps your attention sharp and stops the work from dragging out endlessly. In the evening, revisit the questions that you got wrong in the morning and write the correct answers again from memory. At the end of the week, go back through everything you've covered that week and test yourself again. You'll be surprised how much has stuck. This routine takes less than an hour a day and will outperform 3 hours of passive rereading every time. A note on flashcards. Flashcards aren't inherently bad, but making them is often just a way of feeling productive without actually learning anything. If you already have flashcards, use them for active recall. If you're about to spend 2 hours making a new set, spend that time on retrieval instead. The product isn't the point, the retrieval is. Those are the 4 techniques. Voice memos, the 20-minute teacher, past papers done properly, and active recall. None of them are complicated. All of them work. The difference between students who improve and students who don't usually isn't intelligence or even effort. It's the method. If you take nothing else from this video, take this. Passive revision feels like learning, but it isn't. Reading, highlighting, and rewriting notes all have their place, but on their own, they won't get you where you want to go. You have to make your brain work. You have to retrieve, explain, struggle, and repeat. Start small. Don't try to overhaul everything at once. Pick one technique from this video and use it today, just once, with one topic. See how it feels. Most students who try active recall or the 20-minute teacher are genuinely surprised by how much they already know and how quickly they can fill the gaps that they find. Exams are not a measure of how clever you are. They are a measure of how well you've prepared, and preparation is something that every single one of you has control over. Good luck.